You missed some important news from the LGBTQ+ community this week. To ensure you are current, we are recapping that important news. Here's what you may have missed.
Republicans will try to ban rainbow flag in Florida. LGBTQ+ advocates are becoming increasingly alarmed as municipalities and school districts across the country take measures prohibiting displays of the rainbow pride flag on public property and in classrooms. Some say the move reflects a broader wave of GOP-endorsed reform and policy efforts that include book bans, changes to school curricula, attacks on the use of preferred pronouns, and restriction of reproductive rights. Such restrictions have been approved in Delaware, Ohio, Cold Springs, New York, and school districts from Davis County, Utah, to Wales, Wisconsin. In Florida, Republican State Representative David Barrero introduced a bill that would limit flag displays at all governmental and public school buildings statewide. The municipal measures that prohibit rainbow flags aren't explicitly expressed as such. Presented as a means to avoid favoring any one group over another, they limit flag displays to government and military flags, but the effect is the same. In response to these attacks, the Gilbert Baker Foundation has launched a Save the Rainbow Flag campaign with instructions for local community advocates on mobilization and letter writing activism, plus an open letter from the ACLU with legal arguments against flag restrictions. Well,
the LGBTQ+ movement started with a riot. Republicans that run Florida hope it will end with a whimper. In this week's SFGN, online and on Stands Now, I look at how Governor Ron DeSantis and his underlings are taking their campaign against the LGBTQ+ to the next level by weaponizing the state's bureaucracy. Their attacks on drag entertainment continue, with any bigot able to post a video from an event and say it was endangering children, no matter what the content of the show happened to be. The Department of Business and Professional Regulation investigated our house last summer when a child was seen dancing to music. RuPaul's Drag Race alums brought a drag queen Christmas to the Broward Center, and an investigation was launched from Tallahassee. A venue that hosted the same event in Orlando was also looked into. A single bureaucrat or panel can shut these places down. The Florida Board of Medicine is ending health care for trans kids. None of these issues will come to a vote in the legislature. It's the dirty work being done by unelected officials. This last weekend, Wilton Collective held a fundraiser for LGBTQ+ youth that featured drag entertainment. It was fun and family-friendly. But before the event took place, it was already being reported. Also, cowards were calling in anonymous threats of violence. Wilton Collective founder Julian Cavazos told me, quote, "We're doing everything right. We're not doing anything wrong. This is a family-friendly event bringing together people from all walks of our community," end quote. Wilton Manor City Commission Chris Caputo was threatened with removal from his seat on the commission for supporting the event. This is how it's happening. When the governor comes after an LGBTQ+ group, it will come when everything is quiet. There will be no video of FDLE storming a drag show or breaking up a pride parade. That type of video would cause swing voters to take notice and rise up. No, it will be a bureaucrat showing up with a notice to cease operations. One LGBTQ+ business at a time.
Proud Boys violently attack supporters at D.C. area drag queen story hour.
Not the unfortunate hate and chaos that was displayed here over the weekend.
This is ridiculous. You should be ashamed of yourself.
This was the scene Saturday afternoon outside Loyalty bookstores on Ellsworth. Signs, megaphones, and two groups going back and forth.
We were physically preventing the Proud Boys from breaking through us and reaching those families.
Members and volunteers with Parasol Patrol DMV, a group that shields kids from protesters, were outside trying to protect families who were inside for a monthly Drag Story Hour event. The local chapter of the organization was co-founded last year by Montgomery County Council member Kristen Mink.
It became necessary because there were protesters who were showing up trying to disrupt the events. They're scaring the children, scaring the families, shouting transphobic, homophobic slogans, and attempting to intimidate folks who were attending those events.
But this event was different.
This was the most physical that it got.
The evidence is on his nose.
Assumedly to get into and disrupt the story time.
As John Zittrower and volunteers stood outside the bookstore were trying to stop members of the Proud Boys from getting inside the event, he got hit.
In the ensuing melee, somebody tagged me either with a signpost or a hand or an elbow. I'm not really positive, and someone told me that my nose was bleeding pretty heavily.
It didn't stop there. In cell phone footage shared with Fox 5 DC, you see what appears to be a member of the Proud Boys shouting, yelling, and even stomping on one of the Parasol Patrol volunteers. Montgomery County Police were called to break up the crowd. They say no one was arrested and no reports of injuries. John tells us he didn't want to press charges.
I mean, it would have been hard enough to find out what happened because it was so chaotic, but also like my main focus and the main focus of the group was to make sure all the families were safe and the performer was safe and everybody got back to their cars okay.
Councilmember Mink says even with the disruption, the kids were safe and she believes they had a great time.
The kids who were inside had a wonderful time, a joyful time. They did the hokey pokey, they read wonderful books.
We have a large, vibrant, and supportive community which is not going to slow down or stop anytime soon.
Police in a Maryland suburb of Washington, D.C. had to intervene when violent Proud Boys tried to force themselves into a drag queen story hour event at a bookstore. Families with small children had assembled at Loyalty Books in Silver Spring to enjoy a drag queen story hour event a few days ago. Outside, far-right protesters came to demonstrate against it. One person suffered a facial injury during the standoff between the Proud Boys and LGBTQ+ supporters. Meanwhile, a counter-protest shielding the bookstore's entrance with colorful umbrellas and pride flags prevented any children from being hurt, and the event inside went on as planned. Protesters yelled anti-LGBT+ slurs and accused counter-protesters from the Parasol Patrol DMV group of being groomers. In addition to carrying rainbow umbrellas to obscure the signs to the children at the event, Parasol Patrol members played music and sang songs to drown out protesters jeering. Montgomery Council member Kristen Mink said the situation escalated when Proud Boys kicked, punched, and shoved people. Mink herself was kicked. The far-right and some Republican politicians falsely demonized drag queens, transgender people, and other members of the LGBTQ+ community as groomers. Drag queen story hours have become targets of these far-right extremists.
Tampa Pride loses more than $100,000 in sponsors over DeSantis threats, while parade and festival sold out. For much of this century, gay pride was literally banned in Tampa's Hillsborough County as infamous County Commissioner Rhonda Storms led a vote to adopt a policy in Hillsborough County government to abstain from acknowledging, promoting, or participating in gay pride recognition and events. Little g, little p. That's an exact quote. It passed effectively banning all sanctioned pride events from Hillsborough County. Storms then added an amendment to complete the erasure of the LGBTQ+ community by requiring a supermajority to repeal the ban. It took more than a decade to reverse that hate. The LGBTQ+ community thought it was the worst attack they would ever see. That was until 2023, and along comes Governor Ron DeSantis. In an exclusive interview with me, Tampa Pride's president, Kerry West, tells a chilling tale about the attacks from Tallahassee on Tampa Bay. But he also has lots of news about the success of Tampa Pride's event that is coming up the last weekend in March. Tampa Pride is arguably one of the most successful in Florida, operating on a budget that is in the black and an amount of $470,000. A leading University of South Florida economist estimated the economic impact of 2022 Tampa Pride at nearly $4 million. Tampa Pride is historic Ybor City's largest single economic impact. In an exclusive interview with Tampa Pride's president, Kerry West, he expresses regret of what he is watching from the governor's mansion. For example, he reports Pride has lost 6 major sponsors at a cash value of more than $100,000. Interestingly, they are all national companies outside of the state of Florida. West says, quote, national out-of-state business brands have pulled out of the parade and festival because they are afraid of the politics going on in Florida. They report that they are worried about the Don't Say Gay and the growing issues over drag queens, end quote. West indicates difficulty with alcohol companies because they are particularly sensitive to Governor DeSantis' actions. He indicates his orchestrated attacks on the LGBTQ+ community and allies are creating a chilling effect on their decision-making. He says, quote, "The director of one alcohol sponsor said that if Governor DeSantis can take on Disney, he could become president and then he can take on any business, including ours," end quote. West also reports that the governor's office is threatening Pride in other ways. As example, Tampa receives a $30,000 grant from Florida's Department of Cultural Affairs, and when the political arms of state government realized the state was supporting a gay organization, an inquiry was launched and initiated as to why. While Tampa Pride is fully funded through this grant in 2023 and in 2024, West says he is concerned about what is going to happen next. Tampa Pride has received threats and official letters. A sample of one was shared by the Florida's Department of Professional Regulation that was sent to Orlando Philharmonic for their RuPaul Drag Race Christmas show in December. Florida is threatening to suspend or revoke their liquor license. Hate groups continue to send emails about the disruption of Tampa Pride. One hate issue we can confirm at Queer News Tonight: drag queens cannot and will not be banned from Tampa Pride. Rumors have persisted for weeks that this would be the occurrence stemming from Florida Department of Professional Regulation going after the liquor licenses of Orlando Philharmonic, Broward Center for Performing Arts, Our House here in Miami, and others. In fact, Tampa Pride may be a model for other organizations in Florida. Pride has gone on defense by having the alcohol-connected day and night events at the historic Cuban Club. Those events are now 18+ aged events. About drag queens at the festival and parade, West said, quote, "There is no law against it, and it would be a fascist police state action to prevent our cherished drag community from celebrating Pride in Tampa," end quote. While the hate politics are bad, the news for Tampa Pride is actually very impressive. The festival's 160 booths are in waitlist status now. VIP is sold out, and the parade has the largest number of entries in history at 140 units and sold out on a waitlist now for the 2.5-hour parade. Particularly impressive when you consider these results are more than 1 month prior to the event. Cupcake will headline along with Jordan Frost, and particularly interesting news is Grand Marshal will be the legendary Peppa Mache, as she will celebrate her 70th birthday at Tampa Pride. West concludes his conversation with me by saying, quote, "The governor has an agenda to create a culture war against the most marginalized in our community. This is an agenda created by Ron DeSantis to become president of the United States. It won't succeed at Tampa Pride," end quote.
Say no to RuPaul as Tennessee sets to become first U.S. state to ban drag.
Take a look. My concern with this is the breadth of the language, Mr. Sponsor. And the breadth of this language takes direct aim at the local economy of my city. It takes direct aim at the entertainers within my city. It takes direct aim with the small businesses in my community. And so the language of this bill, now, I don't know if you've ever attended a Beyonce concert. Something tells me you haven't. Or a Harry Styles concert, or a Lizzo concert, or a Madonna concert. Your language prohibiting and the breadth, the vagueness in this bill would prohibit those entertainers from performing in my city. It would prohibit Beyonce, the Queen Bee herself, who is coming to Nashville this year. This bill would allow me as a district attorney, by the plain language of this bill, to arrest Beyonce. Is that your intended goal here?
Tennessee lawmakers passed a bill banning drag shows in public on Thursday, sending the measure to the Republican Governor Bill Lee's desk. In Tennessee's bill, a first offense would be treated as a misdemeanor, but a second offense would be treated as a felony. The law would make Tennessee the first state to ban public drag, which could also affect LGBTQ+ pride celebrations and transgender people who are in shows of any kind. Currently, 20 bills in 15 U.S. states are aimed at drag queen performances. In past years, bills in other states that targeted transgender people prompted strong negative reactions from business leaders, out of concern that discriminatory legislation would make it more difficult to woo clients, talent, and corporate relocations. It's well documented in the economic literature that discrimination against LGBTQ+ people damages their economic, physical, and mental well-being. Additionally, discriminatory bills like the one in Tennessee can lower a nation's GDP. Aaron Reed, a queer legislative researcher and transgender rights activist, said, quote, "The language of the bill is very broad and doesn't differentiate between trans people and drag performers. Drag queen story hours will no longer be rushed by Proud Boys, but cops," end quote. Distract, distract, distract. Distract from Tennessee's embarrassing literacy rate. Distract from the state's poverty rate, which is 6.25% higher than the average in the U.S. Distract from the state's teen pregnancy rate, where it ranks 10th highest. Just keep distracting.
Keep watching the only television news in the world from our LGBTQ+ community and stay informed on everything that is important for and about our diverse LGBTQ+ community.